by just saying it's my opinion.
Yeah. Wolfgang's right. I just looked it up. I'd never actually heard this distinction before. At least I don't remember hearing it. But formal science is the study of, basically it's the scientific study of formal systems, mathematics being one of them. Yeah, makes sense. It's not very common usage. I don't think people.
Yeah, so science is just a description of the natural world around us, right?
Yes, natural science, yeah.
And
are you still using that mouse for the push to talk, Scott?
Nope.
And math is creating a bunch of made-up definitions and then a bunch of axioms that you made up and then deducing what follows from them. And that's not science.
Well, that's not entirely true. Math is also descriptive of the world around us. So math and logic are descriptions of the world around us also. They're descriptive in nature. Right? So if I have 4 apples, I write down the numeral 4, and that describes how many apples I have.
Can you show me square root of 2 apples or no?
Yeah, probably.
How are you going to do that?
Cutting an apple.
I think I would have to give partial apples. Yeah. I'd have to cut one of them in half or something.
Are they going to be exactly the square root of 2, or are we talking just approximately?
Oh no, there's no circles in the real world. There's no triangles in the real world. Math is an abstraction, right? It's abstract. It's concept.
Yes, well, we know because there's no negative numbers, but they love to use them.
Oh, no, negative numbers exist. They're real. So are.
Yes, yeah, but I mean, you can't.
Jeremy, you owe me 5 Oreo cookies, so you have negative 5 cookies.
Dude, I switched to peanut butter crackers.
Are we denying that the square root of 2 can actually be the physical length of something?
It wouldn't quite match reality. It would be a rough approximation.
I'd like to hear from Baked Beans on this if you wouldn't mind.
Well, I don't know. I'm just asking the question of if it is possible to have square root of 2 apples.
Well, wait. Okay. Well, here's something I can give you. You can draw a simple square. The length of each side is 1. Now, the diagonal that you can draw through this square, their length will be equal to the square root of 2. Do you think that's true or false?
Well, I mean, to be honest, I'm not really sure if it is true or false, but I would just say that I think that it calls into question our interpretation of the physical world as mathematical.
That's just gibberish. That's
I
just
understand
nonsense.
that, but let me finish up real quick. I understand that you think this calls into question. However, you not even knowing if that diagonal is equal to the square root of 2, how in the world can you sit there in good conscience and tell other people what you think math is not, or have any valuable, useful input on the subject matter to even begin with? Why should anybody listen to your critiques of mathematics if you can't even answer this simple question?
Well, it's just like asking if, just like your fellow colleagues here just said, you can't have a perfect sphere in the real world.
Yeah, but
we're talking about something that is conceptual, and it's not. It's
well,
not.
Wait.
There's echo.
So what? Okay, Planck length is probably going to be your ultimate barrier at the end, despite our lack of technology at the moment to create what would be a perfect sphere. We're talking perfect, and you have to understand the level of precision we're talking about here. Okay, anyway, and of what value is this? This limit of, say, a Planck length, that a circle is actually going to be limited in its perfection to be an n-sided polygon of Planck length sides. Is that what you're getting at?
Well, it's basically telling us that mathematical models are like orders of magnitude, if not infinitely imprecise compared to the real world.
How do you draw that conclusion? Where are you getting orders of magnitude from
That was
this?
amazing. How did he do that?
I don't think you know what an order
I
of
mean,
magnitude
well,
is, first
so-
of all. Do you know what an order of magnitude is? I don't think you do. You're just throwing words out there. You don't know.
So bacon beans, it's really simple. Mathematics and geometric things are just abstractions. They're concepts. They're ideas that we have in our head. There's no such thing as a real triangle. There's no such thing as a real circle. They're just ideas that we have. They're concepts. They're abstractions. But if you take a square piece of paper and make two sides of it the same length, the diagonal will be the square root of 2. So it's a real number with a real length.
Well, with the Pythagorean theorem, you'd have a square with sides 1, 1, 1, 1, and a diagonal going through it that goes with supposedly with the rule of the Pythagorean theorem, which says that you'd be able to take that square, cut it in half, and 1 squared plus 1 squared would equal that diagonal squared by the Pythagorean theorem. So 1 squared, at least mathematically, is 1, plus 1 squared, 1, which is 2. 2 basically equals that diagonal squared. So you take the square root of that diagonal, the square root of 2, to get the square root of 2, the answer. But in the mind, it's kind of hard to accept, because if you have a square with like 1, 1, 1, 1 as a side, it's kind of like 1 squared is 1. It's kind of like, shouldn't it be more than 1?
No.
So it's a little counterintuitive.
Now you're just talking yourself into a corner of confusion.
It's actually hypocritical, Lemon. You don't accept square root of 2 as a acceptable thing because it's conceptual, but at the same time you accept flat Earth as acceptable, even though the flat plane is purely conceptual. You have hills, you never have an actual flat plane.
Say you have a side of 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. 2 squared by 2 squared, that's like 2 times 2, 2 squared, or 4. It's more than the sides in quantity, but with 1 squared, it's equal. That's a little hard to wrap your mind around.
How do you have...
Hang on. Zanik,
Yeah.
just so you know what he's done here, he's trying to get you to make a right triangle have sides 1, 1, and 1.
I know that. That's what I was just about ready to say. I was just about ready to go there. So, Lemon...
Squared is not more than 1, so it's a little counterintuitive.
Lemon, I know you probably know this because you just haven't thought it through. You have a square, 1, 1, 1, and 1, 4 sides, right? You draw a diagonal, there's 2 triangles, right? The triangle's diagonal, the square's diagonal makes 2 triangles. That is longer than the 2 sides. You said it. Square root of 2. That's 1.41. 1.41 is the diagonal. It's more than the legs. The 2 equal 1 side, distant sides.
But say you were trying to find the area of that square with sides 1, 1, 1, 1. It would just be 1 squared,
So
1 times 1, 1. It would be the same as the side.
That's
That's a little hard to
1.
believe.
That's
That's
an
the area.
equilateral. That's an equilateral triangle. Not.
No,
No,
he's
no,
talking
no,
about
just
the
the
square.
area of the square.
You got 1 square, whatever that distance is. If it's a mile, it's 1 square mile. 1, 1, 1. 2, it'd be 2 times 2 would be 4. Be 4 of whatever that distance of each side is, whatever that unit of measure is on each side. The diagonal is square root of 2. Square root is 1.41. So no matter what what the length of the square's sides are, the diagonal will always be longer, and by longer by a factor of root 2. And if you have a 1, let's say if you had a 1 diagonal, what would be the sides, Lemon?
Well, you'd have to appeal to
Lemon?
somewhat
What would be the
incidental
sides if you had
knowledge.
basic math? What if you had the 1 was the diagonal across the square? What would be the sides of the square? What would that be equal to?
You just reverse it. The 2 sides would be equal. So 2 times the sides squared would equal 1. So half would be s squared. You take the square root of that for both sides, and you get the square root of half
Oh
would
my
be the side.
God.
No,
That
it's
is
one
not
over,
how you do
one over the
math.
square root. It's 1 over the square root of 2. It means 0.707. So that'd be one leg, and the other leg would be 0.707 each leg. The diagonal would be 1. See, this is why math is so useful. And I know
Going
you're a
back
smart guy.
to
You can take
whether
this
or
really
not
quick.
this math relates to the real world, though,
It does relate to the
most of
real
the
world
time,
perfectly.
Hey,
when you
Zenny.
square
Perfectly.
quantities, you expect to have more than the original. So you would have to
You
have
expect to have more, not the rest of us.
transcendental knowledge outside of just the
You
system
couldn't
to
even.
know
You're
how to
the
treat
only
it.
one that expects to
So
have more than you
that
should.
one square
You
unit
couldn't even
is
extrapolate
conventionally
a
treated as
diagonal
one
of 1.
square without going beyond one squared. You would have to have transcendental knowledge beyond just the system to make sense out of it beyond the system
Well,
itself.
it might feel like that to you, but to the rest of us, this is like 8th grade math.
Hang on,
Lemon,
Brenda.
you
I'm
want
going
to
to post
you want a
something
real
that you
world
might want.
example? If I'm making a frame with 4 sides, rectangular or otherwise, and if I want to be sure that it's square, guess what I measure? I measure the diagonal both ways and make sure they're equal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a convention that one square, 1 times 1 squared for the size of that one square will just equal 1 square. You'd have to have transcendental knowledge beyond just the system to
Can you
understand that.
explain to me what transcendental knowledge is?
We really
Knowledge
have
According
I
to
know
him,
what a
you have
transcendental
to
function
be.
is. I'm not sure what a transcendental knowledge is.
I think he
Knowledge
means
beyond
you
just
have
the
to be
math
God
system
to
itself.
understand math.
only God
Because
knows the
in
math.
most math numbers, you take a number, square it, you get more than just the number, based off of the behavior of most of the other numbers in math, except for
Lemon, do you know
1.
what a square represents? What happens when you have a square or a cube or do you know what that means?
Is 1 squared 4? Because it's part of a square and has 4 sides. I mean, what logic are you using, Lemon? I mean, you were definitely smart. You've shown brilliance in this area before, but now you just seems like you're falling asleep. This is really simple stuff. You're not thinking it through. I know. I'm not going to insult you by calling, "Oh, you're an idiot." No, you're just not thinking it through. I know you are, Lemon. Come on.
I understand the convention, but the knowledge of how to treat it is outside of the system's normal behavior.
No, but you're
So
making
you're going to
statements
need
that are
transcendental knowledge beyond just the system to
transcendental
really
knowledge.
understand it beyond intuitive
No,
figuring.
you said earlier you had this feeling that suddenly if we had 2 sides and you squared them because it's a 1, 1 squared is still 1, so it didn't make any sense to you. So it seems like you're a little confused. I mean, you're just saying it's by what you
When
say.
you
I
square
don't know
a
what you're thinking.
number, you get more than just the number, except
Yeah.
for 1.
Someone needs a ban in the debate
Yeah, I
chat
was
box.
going to say the same thing.
Man, I don't know what to say. I mean, now I know why people think the world, in this group, why they think the world's flat. They just can't do simple math.
So is 1
just like-
equal to 1 squared, or is 1 squared more than 1?
Lemon, I
1
guess you never
squared
you
is
never bought
1.
carpet for your living room or linoleum floor for your kitchen or anything like that, right?
Lemon, if I
Are we
have
talking about a shape or a numerical value?
hey Lemon, if I
Either way.
have 1 tile for my bathroom, how many tiles do I have?
You would have 1 square tile.
Yeah.
So we're talking about a shape, a square shape,
I'd have
but
1
not
of
a
them.
numerical value.
I have 1. I have
If I
1
have
square tile.
1, this is like the guy that's talking to his girlfriend in the car, and he says, "Honey, if I'm going 60 miles an hour and I go for 1 hour, how far do I go?" And they talk about this over this video for like 10 minutes.
And
This is
that's
what-
the transcendent knowledge that you need outside of just the numerical system. That
No,
1 squared is really
no,
talking
one squared,
about.
what is 1 squared? What does
a
1
shape.
squared mean, Lemon? What does
A
that actually mean?
It's not really
Mathematically, what does it
referring,
mean?
not all the time anyway,
What does
to
it
a
mean? What
numerical
is 1
value.
squared? What does 1 squared mean? What is the definition of 1 squared mathematically? What are you doing?
Value-wise, 1 and 1 squared are equal. But
No,
shape-wise,
no,
it's
it's
a 4x4 figure that has
understand
all
it?
sides that are 1.
So how do you calculate 1 squared? What are the root elements of 1 squared?
You would have to have the convention in your head
One
beyond
times
just
one.
the math
I'll tell you the
system
answer.
with the transcendental
One times
knowledge
one.
that one
Would you not
squared
agree that
and
one times
one are
one is
supposed to equal
any
without
two
one squared being more than one numerically?
any two numbers times themselves is squared? Half squared can be, as Phil mentioned in the chat. What's a half squared?
It's 1/4.
But
Even
one
know what
squared is one. How'd that work?
is, Lemon.
And two squared is 4. Why is one the exception? So
Zanuck?
far. Only God
Zanuck.
knows why.
Is it an exception?
Xana, can I share a quote with you, please?
Please.
The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting different results. Do you know who said that?
I did.
Internet.
I know you know who said that. So why are
The-
you doing
the
this?
internet?
Well, it is entertaining. Sort of.
No,
painful after a while.
actually, that's what the internet says. The definition of insanity is an ability to tell reality from fiction.
No, this is a famous
Even the
quote.
fractions are a nightmare because you square them and you get a smaller quantity, not a bigger one.
No,
Quit
what's
your
wrong with
bitch.
that? What's wrong
Congratulations, Lemon. You are beginning to understand basic geometry.
Xana,
Wait,
that's
if you
obviously
square a
I
if you
Just
know.
one
square a
quick-
Did
the
was
that?
it
Wait a minute.
opening-
Wait a
Alright.
minute. Jeremy wanted to go. Jeremy, go
gold? Was it gold something? He had a theory about this.
ahead. Jer-
People that
Jeremy,
have a hard time. Good.
I didn't mean to overtalk Rocket. I had my volume way down. Sorry.
No, go ahead. You had something to say.
What Lemon just said. If you square a fraction, you get a less amount.
Yeah, 1/2
Yeah,
squared
technically a fraction of 1, like between 0 and 1, if you want to get technical.
Negative,
One
I mean,
fifth
when you multiply,
times 1/5, it's 1/25.
negative exponents. You get negative numbers. Don't forget, the little numbers are negative in their world.
all right. You know what? Never mind.
Jeremy, 1/2 times 1/2 is 1/4. So 1/2 squared is smaller than 1/2.
Why is that? Why is that?
It's magic. I have transcendental knowledge.
Oh, I'm sorry. I want to know from Jeremy. Jeremy, why is 1/2 times 1/2 1/4? Or in other words, if you had a half of something
I was on mute.
and you took a half of that half, what would you have of the original? How much?
Because
Well,
of
what you're doing when you're multiplying is you're just adding, basically. So you're basically adding more negative amounts to the half. So yeah,
Well, when you multiply,
it makes sense.
multiply
makes sense.
fractions like that. Just like if you multiply half by 10, what do you get? You get half of 10. You get 5.
Oh. It makes sense now that I've thought about it.
Sure.
But when Lemon said it, it had me thinking.
And what about when you're multiplying integers, like 1 times 1 or 2 times 2? What's the
Yes.
difference?
You get a
Why
bigger
do you
number, yes.
with a different number with 2 and any other integer than you do with 1, where you get the same? Because 1 is singular. 1 is the only one that is 1. And if you have 1, you have 1. If you have 2 2s, you have 4. That's what 2 times 2 is. 3 3s? Is it 6 or is it 9, Jeremy? Go. 9. Very
Yes,
good.
very
3
good.
3s will give you 9.
Miles.
But haven't we called into question
If-
the whole
No,
the
what we're
entire
doing is
mathematical edifice
we're
that
trying
the
to
heliocentric
prepare
model has
people.
built?
We are preparing people to move up to Sesame Street.
It is important to check how these mathematical concepts relate to reality so we don't wander off too far in the woods.
I mean, doesn't Gödel's incompleteness theorem
No,
tell us
no.
that
We're
the
doing-
entire thing cannot be proven to be consistent? So the entire thing is now called into question, in my opinion.
We're doing fractions and squares, not advanced logic.
Yeah, let's wait for tomorrow for that lesson.
This clown,
Get ahead of ourselves here.
this clown that did not have or did not seem to get the simple point with the square root of 2 is now breaking out shit like this. What kind of a fucking po do we have here?
All I said was that the entire thing cannot be proven to be consistent. And
why would somebody of your seemingly low intellect up to this point break out something like this?
Oh God.
I mean, I'm sorry if you think it's low intellect. I mean, but it is what it is. It calls into question the entire mathematical model that you guys have cited this entire time.
It actually
You
doesn't.
gave yourself away way too quickly. You're not as dumb as you're acting. Congratulations.
So tell me how. So your math, you cannot prove to be consistent, but yet we're supposed to accept it like it's some word of God. I mean, really, this is what we're talking about when we say that you guys have a religious conviction to.
I haven't heard inconsistency yet. Where's inconsistency at? Why you claiming out your ass, bro?
Well, the problem with math or really any man-made system is it's going to be probably somewhat inadequate. It'll have its trade-offs, it's good and it's bad, but
I mean,
ultimately,
guess what you're talking on right now.
He just debunked himself because the whole system of Europe being flat is a man-made concept.
He's talking on a man-made platform. Voila! How inconsistent is it? Because unfortunately, we can hear Lemon just perfectly fine. I can't talk today. What's wrong with me?
well, it has its glitches, its bugs, its echoes, its inadequacies. It's got to be, patched, improved, updated, all that stuff. It's a trade-off, but it's going to have its good and its bad. The stuff that it's missing, the stuff that it's not, its consistencies, its inconsistencies, that sort of thing. Just like with numbers or anything else, man-made
No,
anyway.
you don't get to shit all over mathematics by making a thing like just like numbers. No.
We
Lemon.
have to
Every
have its shortcomings. That way we don't wander off into absurdity.
Absurdity is the kind of statements you make. Going from A to Z something. I don't even know how far you jump out to.
Math shows only logics, so how to say it's illogical is baffling.
That's not true.
But we can't prove that it's consistent. That's the problem.
They say the only thing you can prove is math. You're saying they can't even.
No, they
We already showed one
admit that they
consistency.
cannot prove their mathematical models are
Who
consistent.
are
That's
they?
what I'm saying.
You're not-
Maybe you can challenge it as far as to reality, but math or theorems and formulas are definitely consistent, and that's why they are as such.
Well,
already
everyone up to this date has been
consistency with the
consistent,
math.
but they cannot prove
Rocket asked the only
that
reasonable
all of
question. Who are
mathematics
they?
is consistent.
So he's not.
We already saw an inconsistency
they?
with most squared numbers
Blah, 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 blah,
increasing
blah.
the
Who are they?
value, but one does not. So that's already an inconsistency.
So
Oh my lord.
this other person, what's his name? Baked Beans is not correctly stating the Gödel's incompleteness theorem. It simply says. that
Oh,
for any-
really?
Correct.
I'm surprised.
So for any sufficiently complex system, there are some statements within the system that cannot be proven by the axioms of that system. That's all it says.
But apparently they are saying more than that. But we're still waiting to hear who they are. Nothing. All right.
Right. It just says that you can't prove all. There are valid statements within arithmetic that cannot be proved within arithmetic, with the axioms of arithmetic. That's what it.
There
that's
must
what
be
it
an
says.
unproven starting point. An unproven starting point that's more or less accepted to begin to operate.
Right. It just means that we can that math, or logic is just a branch of mathematics. It's a human-made creation. It's a language for describing reality itself, right? And it can't be derived purely from axiomatic statements.
Well, yeah, the definition of proof itself says there must be at least two premises. And those premises can't be part of the proof because they lead to the proof. So, duh.
Yeah. I mean, it is a big deal, but it's a lot of times what people do is they'll latch onto something that adds a little mystery to things, like Schrodinger's cat or the Gödel's incompleteness theorem, and from that, then they want to insert their woo. They want to, whatever kind of woo it is, and quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics says this such and such that doesn't make a lot of sense. Therefore, I'm Deepak Chopra, and I can heal you with my mind or something.
Yep.
You got to admit though that Schrodinger's cat thing is kind of silly.
It is supposed to be silly because it was presented to demonstrate the quote-unquote silliness of the Stockholm interpretation.
Copenhagen.
Sorry.
Yeah, just because you don't understand it, Jeremy, doesn't mean it's silly.
It's ridiculous.
That's not the definition of silly.
Go ahead, Beans. Oh, I thought Baked Beans was trying to say something. Yeah, but saying the cat.
It's supposed to fucking poke slight fun of this idea in quantum mechanics that things are probabilities and there is no underlying reality to those probabilities until you make a measurement.
Yeah. That's the Copenhagen interpretation says that that the properties like spin, charge, and mass and things like that, position, velocity, don't exist until they're measured. That's what the Copenhagen says.
And
saying we don't know shit. They're saying we don't know shit until we know it.
Until we measure it. And the physicist who gave the Schrodinger's cat was more of a classic physics type of guy who said, okay, there is reality, and reality is there regardless of whether you measure it or not. It's just there. It's always there. It doesn't play this peekaboo game where it pops into existence when you just measure it.
Yeah, but doesn't it say that the cat is dead and alive at the same time, or it's both dead and alive or something?
Until you observe it and see what it is.
I think, Jeremy, it will be easier if you tell us what did the physicist that proposed Schrodinger's cat actually fucking meant within the context of quantum mechanics. Go ahead.
I don't even know what you just said, but I thought it meant that the cat could be alive as both alive and dead, and you don't know which one.
What does that mean within the context of quantum mechanics?
They tried to say that it could actually mean that the cat was alive and dead at the same time, which is a logical contradiction, which can obviously never ever exists in reality, which is total horseshit.
Do you want to reference the photon? Is that what you're talking about? Because they seem to not want to be on point.
But there he goes again for the they. Always the they with this one.
It's logically untenable.
Say who they are every now and then. It would help your argument a bit. Who's they?
These two gentlemen that just spoke before me.
It's logically untenable.
If you look at a Pop Sci article, that's what they claim. They claim that the cat is alive and dead at the same time, which again is obviously horseshit.
No, it's not. It's the science trumps whatever you think is horseshit. It is.
Really?
Well, you can say that, but it's everyone knows that you cannot have something be X and not X at the same time. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's a logical contradiction that can never actually exist in the real world.
Except reality says you're wrong.
I don't know. I mean, if the cat can't be dead and alive at the same time, so.
It's logically untenable because
That's
what are
the
you
interpretation
measuring?
of it. That's the
It's
interpretation of
logically
taking something from the quantum scale to a larger scale. That's why that is so funny. That's why it's kind of, the joke.
It's logically untenable because what are you measuring? If there's nothing that is pre-existent there to measure or quantify, what are you measuring in the first place? Are you measuring your interaction with the thing, or are you measuring the thing itself? It's logically untenable. A better philosophy is needed to make this more intuitive and much more understandable.
You don't get the joke. You're not.
There is no need to make it intuitive. It's supposed to match the observations.
The cat thing's supposed to be
And that's
funny?
the fucking point. The Copenhagen interpretation matches observations much better than any other model that was proposed.
Well, there is a.
But we know.
There is a logic. There's a logic for quantum mechanics. It's called quantum logic, right? And it's different than classical logic. Classical logic, as we understand it, applies to us at the non-quantum scale, but at the quantum level, you can apply what's called quantum logic.
Well, the philosophy needs to be intuitive enough to discover truth, because if the philosophy is so messed up, even if something is true with a messed up philosophy, it would become totally undiscoverable, unverifiable, and uncheckable. In a word, it would become mysticism.
Just a moment ago, I said
philosophy
that
allows us to test if this is true, intuitive, and knowable versus just mysticism.
Just a moment ago, I said that Lemonbird's requirement for it to be intuitive is fucking useless. It's supposed to make accurate predictions, and it seems that went right over Lemon's head. It's supposed to be intuitive. That's more important than being right.
But your model is supposed to make accurate predictions, and I don't see any logical contradictions in the real world. When, at least for me, I don't see any of them. So now you guys have to provide evidence that they actually exist in the real world.
Beans, the model does make predictions.
Schrodinger's cat doesn't actually have to do with the fucking actual cat. It has to do with the superposition of subatomic particles.
If you really want to get Lemonbird going, we could say that even God can't know whether Schrodinger's cat is alive or dead.
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, no. It has to. Okay, so basically, it's a thought experiment that if you have like a timer that may or may not kill the cat, quantumly, it's in both positions of being alive and dead. It's a
superposition.
Probability. It's in a probability mush of both, because it has to do with electrons and like electron orbitals, and them behaving both like particles and waves, and at the same time. It's mostly used with it is legit, because that's how transistors work with electrons.
The only problem
how your computer works.
The only problem with that philosophically, if we're going to use this to illustrate the concept, let's see what's being illustrated here for any sort of intelligibility. How far does that extend? Does the bench that the cat is on exist or not exist?
See, the problem
does the house that bench is attached to exist or not exist? Does the county that house exists in exist or not exist? Does the road connecting that house to your highway exist or not exist?
What are you talking
all the way to yourself?
about?
No way to contain that, leading eventually to breakdown and lack of intelligibility if you extend it beyond that cat.
Okay,
Lemon, it's not. It doesn't have to do with the cat not existing.
Yeah.
And it's not even based. What Redux had said before was correct. It's not supposed to be based on actually being able to do this to a cat. He was trying to show how absurd the interpretations were, and at first it is an absurd interpretation. Ultimately, he's talking about quantum states, and a cat's not going to. You're not going to be in quantum states, like particles. And
also,
they have observed this to be true. So,
also, correct me if I'm wrong, but Schrodinger, in the end, was a supporter of the Copenhagen interpretation.
Yeah, that he said that early on. Like that's his first. That was something he said early on. and like against the interpretations of things having being in two states at the same time.
It is interesting philosophically because most people would tend to believe that the truth is somewhat extendable. It's true throughout time, true in this place versus that place. This appears to give a scale where truth is unknowable?
In certain cases in quantum mechanics,
What?
certain things are unknowable, yes. You cannot know the position and velocity of a particle at the same time. Right? You understand that, right, Lemon? You understand the double slit experiment. The photon goes through both slits at the same time.
Well, there was one dude saying that basically you could have a wave interpretation of it with the light going through the slits, energizing the slits with the light, and the slits start emanating light waves. These light waves could lead to interference patterns as the waves crash together and be interpreted by us where the waves crash against each other as quote-unquote particles. So there may be other interpretations of the same test. So we may
That
need to
doesn't
look.
make any sense at all because you can put just one photon out of the emitter, just one photon, and it's not a wave, it's a particle, and it goes through both slits at the same time.
The only problem with the photon is it appears to be a convention. There's nothing with any essence there beyond theoretical abstraction. Nobody grabbed a photon. They theorized it as
it's
an
not
energy
something you can
packet.
grab,
It's more
it's
like a packet of sugar than an actual thing with one essence. It's an arbitrary division. It doesn't have an essence beyond that.
Lemon, when did you become a professor in physics?
There's
Well,
a
the
lot of
essence of a
stuff to read up
photon would
on
be
this.
its
I like to
wavelength.
look at the
Wouldn't it?
alternative standpoints because a lot of times they have a lot of stuff to say about it too.
Yeah, Lemon is.
But the thing is, the model that explains what we have going on is what's used to make modern computers and modern transistors. What you guys are all doing is just pure rhetoric of empty talk. There's no model, there's no anything. You guys just talk about it. But what the model we have is literally used in transistors and to make your computer work. So sure, you can give whatever explanation you think you have for it, but you have literally absolutely nothing to back it up, and it's not used in any application at all.
Unfortunately, your philosophy is so superposition-y, Schrodinger's
It's not a
catting
philosophy.
and so undiscoverable. I have no way to tell if it's true or not because
does
there's
your
no
computer work?
philosophy that allows any sort of discoverability beyond the pragmatics where you say it works, therefore it must be true. The lie works. Deception works. There are things that people make function with a lying explanation while in the
More
background there's
salad.
something else that
Now,
makes it
wait
true.
a minute, Lemon.
Your
I'm going to stop
philosophy
you
of
before you keep going
pragmatics
down this
is
straw man.
problematic in the extreme itself.
Where is the lie? If
Wait a minute.
transistors and computers are working, where's the lie? I don't get it.
Someone please stop him
He's saying
running off all
that
those stupid words.
this lie of an explanation just happens to work. But no one said.
But you're
for
acting
certain
like there's
this
like there's gonna be active
Just a minute.
power against you if you try to explain it differently. There's billions of dollars in research that go into exploring alternatives and exploring different models. You just literally sit on the internet and just talk out of your ass.
Yeah, Lemon, no one says that this must be true. We say it works, therefore it's probably true, as far as we can tell.
And not just that, there's literally billions and billions of dollars in research that go into exploring these fields. This guy, he's acting like they're gonna stop you if you suddenly say something else. It's encouraged.
Yeah.
You can literally go research it, and you'll get paid for it too.
Yeah, the CPU that is driving your computer right now absolutely depends on quantum mechanics. They can't build a 7 nanometer scale CPU without using quantum mechanics. It can't be done.
Not just 7 nanometer, like even in larger chipsets, it literally can't be done. Your SSD wouldn't work. Like literally the entire computer wouldn't work if we didn't have an understanding of quantum mechanics at the level we do. And for him to imply there's some there's some line deception going on when you can actively get paid to research alternatives is absurd.
He thinks it's a lie from Satan.
Yeah, but he doesn't understand that
because he didn't come up with it.
Yeah, we used the power of Thor and threw it into a rock, and therefore we got a CPU.
Well,
the philosophy just needs to be checked for BS. If there's no philosophy to allow discoverability of the truth, you could be lying or deceiving yourself with no way to discover it. Pragmatics alone is not sufficient because the lie can too.
But Lemon, it's actively being investigated. Like, what's your point? It's actively being investigated with billions of dollars in research. What's your point?
We have to read his point is we have to read the Bible. That's how we check for BS.
Yeah,
I get it. Okay.
Ask to stop him talking about philosophy. We're not talking philosophy here.
But all science is based
Without
on
a consistent philosophy,
so
there's little to no way to discover the truth.
Disown philosophy. It's all of it is based on that. So.
Listen, science may be in a philosophical sense a philosophy, but not all philosophy is science, and that's what you were trying to make it. You're trying to put it in the same fucking bucket.
Method is correct. Are you going to use the scientific method on the
I
scientific
wasn't
method
finished.
itself?
I wasn't finished talking. I wasn't finished talking. I was making a point that you're putting science into the same fucking bucket of philosophy as religion and dumb fuckery that thinks that sky is painted blue every morning. That's your statement. You deal with it. I don't want to go there.
Okay, but I'm just asking you, can you use the scientific method to validate the scientific method itself?
I've got a question for you. Do you actually which of the billions of scientific methods do you want to use to validate another scientific method?
You need transcendent knowledge to go beyond the system. You need to be frank and honest about what transcendent knowledge outside of the system you use to make the system work, be it God, will, convention, or social rules or whatever.
You gotta use the Bible on the scientific method, then Lemon will accept it.
We go outside of the system by just stepping back, looking at science and saying, was it useful? And we see that it was. Done.
Transcendent knowledge.
Okay, well, that's not verifying it. That's just saying that it's useful. That's not verifying anything, but all right.
Well, that's all we're doing is verifying that it's useful. It's useful in that it produces accurate and repeatable results that allow us to do things.
But that's dangerous. That's pragmatics. You could be having a lie work, a lie that is not sustainable without the truth.
That doesn't mean it's a lie. You can have a coincidentally accurate description that is wrong in its details. Eventually you might find that out. Eventually you might not. If all you're concerned with is using it to make useful results, then that's fine.
Transcendent knowledge. You got to claim it when you say it's good. It feels right to be a good boy. How do you know that? Transcendent knowledge? How else do you know it?
I don't know.
Hey Lemon, so in the Bible
right.
when they
it just makes sense to work together. It just makes
no,
sense.
I have a question for Lemon. Lemon, when they get the circumference of a circle wrong in the Bible, how is the Bible going to help us build 7 nanometer chip?
The Bible didn't say a quote circumference. It just was giving an actual historical account of how they built something. It's a false dilemma. They didn't
exactly
say
what I'm talking
pi
about.
is exactly this, and on top of that, the second problem
exactly what I'm talking about.
is we do not know what pi is even to this day. We're still computing all the decimals beyond pi to get an exact value even now. So it's a false dilemma because not even we know what pi is, but we're chiding them for not knowing what pi is when we don't know it ourselves. It's a critical and false dilemma.
A circle is 3. The Bible said the circumference of a circle is 3, so I don't know how we're going to suddenly use this transcendent knowledge to build 7 nanometer chip architecture.
False dilemma, and it didn't say this is the circumference. It was just building instructions that were historical. False dilemma.
Lemon, it just shows you there's so much interpretation that you can make on this. I don't know how this transcendent knowledge has any practicability in the real world, especially in the type of work that's needed nowadays, and how much more advanced it's getting.
Even then, it has practical application because you can appeal to the source of
No, it doesn't.
truth, God Himself, for an answer, and if it's in His will, He'll give it to you. What's
let's
more
say- let's
practical
say-
than
I
that?
thought 2 minutes ago you were arguing against simply going for practicality.
No, hold on. So wait, so Lemon,
So
let's
the
say you're the
logic is
CEO
the
of
transcendent
AMD.
knowledge. The logic.
Okay, let me ask. I have a question for Lemon. So let's say Lemon, let's say you're the CEO of AMD. You're working on the 5 nanometer chip architecture. What do they got to do to transcend their knowledge? I just don't get it. Like, what should the scientists or the engineers do?
We were talking about math as an example how no system is adequate. You need to go outside of the system with transcendent knowledge to make even a system work. So these systems that man tries to make that are quote unquote self-containing, it's
But it
not
does
going to
work.
happen.
Now you could say that
But it literally works.
perfect, but there's a lot of adequate systems for certain applications.
So the current CPUs that use 7 nanometer architecture, do they have transcendent knowledge in them, or whatever that means?
If they had math to use them and the mathematic system was not adequate in some way, then by extension, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not. You're just throwing word salad out now. I'm not sure even if you understand what you're saying.
No, he
Okay.
doesn't.
Well,
he doesn't.
I mean, you need to have a decent philosophy if you're going to discover truth. Pragmatism isn't quite going to do it because
So
of lying.
how do you discover truth, Lemon?
So I'm curious, if you have a decent philosophy yourself, Lemon, how the fuck is it that you don't know how processors are made?
I mean, all I'll say is, what's the point? If we're not talking about actual truth, then what's the point? I mean, I'll just say, if anybody says anything, I'll just say, oh, I can explain it because God did it. I mean, if we're just going to sit here and say, well, it works, then what's the point of any of it?
The point is getting close to truth. Lemon's argument is the negative example for like the phrase, don't let perfect be the enemy of good enough. Science and the way we do it is about getting good enough better and better. It's not about being perfect.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure Lemon knows what he's fucking saying. To be honest with you, he just keeps throwing words around the place.
He's just frightened, and he feels afraid because he feels that the modern world threatens his religion, and so he feels he has to combat against the demonic forces that are threatening belief in the Bible.
Just putting some of that postmodern atheism in check, where truth doesn't exist and all you do is do what works, whether you have to lie, cheat, steal, and kill to get it to work for you.
Hey, Lemon, do you think that...
What the fuck are you talking about?
What the fuck are you talking about, dude?
That's not postmodernism in any capacity. That's
What the
been
fuck?
the way science has worked for fucking millennia. Like, what did you just say?
This dude says we can't ever get to the truth, but we can get close to the truth. That's highly postmodern.
No, that's not. You
Saying
fucking
the
moron.
truth
That's
doesn't
just,
exist, but we
I'm
can get
sorry.
close to it. That's highly
Wait.
postmodern, dude.
So
Lemon
Lemon,
doesn't exist. It's
Lemon,
just
do
hard
you-
to get at.
Lemon, do you think we know the speed of light?
In a particular medium.
He
But
thinks
the
that-
philosophical conception of how light travels going from A to B is off. It's more like a wave in a medium. So if you
So,
change the
Lemon-
nature of the medium, you change the speed at which, quote unquote, the light travels, or rather, the way at which the wave propagates through the medium.
So, Lemon, so are you saying that we can't truly know the speed of light?
It depends on the condition of the medium. To get the truth of what, or closest to the truth, rather, you have to have a philosophy that allows the truth to be discoverable. The way that it travels as waves and ripples through the medium, rather than as a bullet-like pebble traveling through space like a photon or whatever.
Does light get tired, Lemon?
Yeah, it shifts toward red, like when the sun goes away from us in the evening, yeah. Eventually the light
Oh
waves
my God.
dissipate and lose their energy. Tired light, yeah.
No, that's not
Tired
actually a
light.
thing. That's not a thing.
Tired light.
Intuitive, natural, doesn't war against the mind, and allows people to think about it without going, mystical or, just
Well,
being
you're
forced
the
to-
one going mystical. You're literally the one going mystical and crazy. When we have practical evidence and explanations for everything, You're basically, your entire point is whatever the current understanding is, it's somehow propagated by the devil or some evil spirit,
Well, the
and
thing
you
is,
just want to go against it for the sake of going against it. You have literally, you
But
don't
I
even know
haven't
why.
seen a consistent philosophy other than pragmatism here, which is
Mm.
dangerous because the lie can work for you. You can deceive and lie
What lie?
to get to the
What- yeah,
top, and
what-
it can
what
work for you
lie?
very
What
pragmatically.
lie? No, but you don't understand. There's literally billions of dollars in research that go to understanding these things and going against what we currently know. You keep saying lie, but
That's affirming the consequent. You're saying that any amount of money would have ferreted out this problem. You do not
Okay, but answer the question.
necessarily
What
have
lie?
that as being true. It depends on the mechanisms
But
in
it's
place
being
that allow innovation versus stifling it, that allow
it's
the
being
truth to come out
researched.
versus
No, my
suppressing
point.
it.
It's not
You
about
can't
the
just
money.
affirm the consequent like that just because there's a dollar sign behind it.
Listen. I'm not talking about that. My point is, there's alternative views constantly being researched and explored by the same institutions that you're calling. They're spreading the lie, apparently. So your point literally makes absolutely no sense at all. Literally at all.
Well,
we could
the reason that he says that light gets tired is that way he can believe in a 6,000-year-old Earth.
I mean, Lemon, you want to talk about a lie? I think there's a lot of irony in what you're saying.
No, that's why. The reason that light gets red, Lemon, is because of the Doppler effect, right? Because the farther away a wave is from us, the more it shifts towards red. It's not because light gets tired. Light doesn't get tired.
Light loses energy and goes toward the less energetic red side of the spectrum, tired light.
No, it doesn't do that.
Oh God!
It doesn't do
what
that.
the fuck?
It really doesn't. It really doesn't.
It's just incredible. Lemon, completely on his own, has become a professor and a PhD in physics. It's good job, Lemon.
Not the
Hey,
first
whatever makes
letter,
up
sir.
Have the
spectrum,
spirit of truth, aka God,
astromathically
to direct you toward what you need to know.
Where in the Bible
And
does it
some
say light
independent
gets
thought
tired?
beyond the collective that might stifle the mind and keep you
No.
from thinking in
You pulled-
independent terms.
You pulled light gets tired out of your ass. Where in the Bible does it say light gets tired?
Hold on. Here's a question. Doesn't the statement
That was a theory of how light propagated from back then, like the
Okay,
70s
and it
or
turns
whatever.
out they were wrong.
Hold on though. Did the statement light loses energy is that not a violation of the first law of thermodynamics? I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it would be.
How about this? How would it not be a violation of the laws of, let's say, matter cannot be created or destroyed? Well, how are we sitting here in a universe right now if it can never be created and never destroyed? That's kind of what I'm wondering.
There's two ways to interpret it: eternal pantheism, or you could say once it's created, then it can never be created or destroyed from that point.
But that's not what they said. They said specifically it can never be created or destroyed, but we see it in front of us, so empirical evidence would debunk that.
Without supernatural in the natural world, that's a natural world.
We see it transferred. We don't see it created. It's incorrect.
Yeah.
Mass can be
Light
converted.
transfers energy.
Mass can be converted into energy, and energy into mass. That's possible.
So how did the energy get created?
We don't
Supernatural. Supernatural.
Jesus.
The only
Jesus did it.
system that's left available to this sort of thinking is eternal pantheism. So basically,
you
it's
see,
divine simplicity and eternal
That is an
pantheism.
argument from ignorance. You have to figure out how that's even you have to come up with evidence. That's the point. Where's your evidence?
Dude, just read the Bible. You'll know everything, apparently.
Fuck,
But the thing is, people have to work within the real world with the options that they have, and the only options left available with this worldview is eternal pantheism.
No, that's an argument from ignorance. Look around you. Like what?
Hell, dumb fuckery is this?
Lemon, do you ever analyze your own thinking and use the same scrutiny you do to everything else on yourself?
These questions were already asked of Lemon, and I would say dozens, if not hundreds of times by different globers under the pretense that Lemon is actually going to listen.
Pragmatism and eternal pantheism sounds great.
It sounds like he's enjoying
stealing
this
and
shit.
killing from each other.
Like, Lemon, you have a lot of criticism for the current stuff going on that literally gives you everything, but you seem to not criticize the stuff you say. And what you say is a million times more absurd.
I just literally got into hearing
Like that
the
guesstimate.
idea that we don't know everything is postmodern, and that just infuriated the fuck out of me.
Apparently light gets tired, I don't know, just stops
Yeah,
running
that's
after a
I
while.
still don't understand.
I learned something new every day.